Good day, Governor. Of course, you might not be the governor, but whoever you are, welcome to another tutorial. I'm Jason Calhoun. It's pretty late at night here, just finishing up some stuff and about to go to bed, but I thought, I haven't put a little tutorial in a while, so I might as well throw out a quick one here real quick. But first, I need to learn to talk. In this one, I'm going to show you some quick tips for using cameras or camera in After Effects. And you might know of these tips. They're pretty, you learn these pretty quick working in After Effects in 3D. But what most people do is just use kind of the standard camera controllers in After Effects. So like, for example, if I put a camera in, okay, I guess I should make this a little more simple because maybe some of you are new to After Effects, and that's cool. So in order to really utilize 3D in After Effects, you throw in some text like I did here, and then maybe you throw in, let's just throw in a background, new layer, solid, make it, it doesn't really matter what color because, okay, let's just do this. Let's just make it simple. Okay, so we have our camera tipped text, we have our red background, which looks awful. And then maybe we throw in, just for fun, I don't know, we throw in a circle. Because a circle makes the world go round. Literally, a circle is the world, so that's cool. And so we have our circle here, and we want our circle to be blue, obviously. It's a circle. And okay, there we go. And so we want to make these 3D, so I just highlight this little 3D box and check all of those. So now they're all 3D. I want to move them in 3D space, so maybe I'll just click on the shape, and I'll push that back in 3D space, and maybe up a little bit. And then we'll put our background the furthest back there, and make it a little bit bigger here. By the way, I'm wearing Grumpy from the Seven Dwarfs pajama pants. So just in case you were like, hey, I wonder what pajama pants Jason's wearing. Well, that's what they are. So you're now informed. Okay, so let's move this forward a little bit. And why am I out of breath? I'm sitting. I just moved around, changing some mic stuff around, so that may be it. Okay, so we have our setup here. We have our text, our little box, and then whatever. So we want this to look 3D, So what we normally do is go to New, Camera. I want to add a camera here. And we'll make it a 35mm lens. Cool. And the reason all that changed is because I did choose a 35mm lens. If I go into camera and camera settings under layer and maybe change that to a 50mm, you can see it changes the look. We are changing the lens literally, so of course it's going to change the way that the camera views our 3D. So easiest thing to do is just kind of go in. You could change the lens and play around with that, but I'm just going to resize everything to make it work with the lens that we chose. That's cool. So what normally people do, let's say that we just wanted the camera to do something pretty simple. We want it to animate. We want it to start way back far and then maybe kind of truck, what would you call it? Dolly into the text and kind of sweep around the text and then maybe come over to the ball up here. So what normally people would do, at least when they first get into After Effects to animate the camera, is twirl down the camera settings. Maybe they would keyframe like the orientation, and they'd start here and then move forward a few frames and then tweak this a little bit. Or what they might do, let me reset the camera. Or the most common thing is right up here you have your camera tools, which the keyboard shortcut for that is C. So that's normally what you'd use, is just hit C, and that'll cycle through your camera controllers. So like here we have our dolly the camera in, dolly the camera out. You have this orbit tool, which just orbits. You can see the camera around. We're in 3D space now. If I dolly back, and then this one will actually kind of truck the camera left or right. You can see, so we're in 3D space. We're moving the camera around. Actually, need to make a quick change here, possibly. Let's just going to move my anchor point, my point of interest, sorry. So maybe somewhere out here, a little further. That'll just make the camera kind of orbit around that area. Maybe make the orbit, yeah, that's better. So there we go, you know, something like that. Okay, let me reset the camera. So that's normally what people do, is like, so for example, I'll show you how people would normally animate the camera. They start out here, and we'll resize our background so it fills up the whole thing. And so they might start here, and you know, you would keyframe maybe the orientation and the position, and then you'd move forward a few frames, and you'd come in here. I'm hitting C, and maybe the camera like trucks in, dollies in. You know, you reposition it down here, and then you're like, hey, I want to move forward a little bit more. Actually, maybe back here, because while I'm doing this push in, you know, the camera is pushing in. I also want it to sort of orbit around. So let me go back to this keyframe, get my orbit tool, and so I'll just add a keyframe for the. What that's going to change is oh, the position also. Okay, never mind. So then I want to move forward, and while it's, you know, zooming in, I want it to kind of orbit around this way. And so you go back and you check that, and you're like, okay, that's kind of cool. Then I want to get it here. I want it to kind of stop, and I want it to orbit around this way. Whatever. I mean, you know, I'm just animating the camera. And so what can happen though is, let's say you go in here and you're like, hey, and then I want it as it's. What is it? Oh, it's not doing the live update. Okay, there we go. Sorry. So as it's coming around this way, I also want it to dolly in a little bit more. So let me get my little dolly tool. So I set that, and then I want to go down here and zoom in. This is just kind of a funky way to animate your camera. And what you'll find is, if you put together a pretty, you know, a pretty in-depth sequence together, a pretty maybe, I don't know, a full, I guess, composition, you could say, lots of you know, different things in your scene, and some more difficult camera movements, you end up, if you try to animate your camera using these tools, these camera tools, you can get some funky results. And what will end up happening is you'll get some animation that you like, but then you'll want to change it a little bit. Maybe you'll want to play with the orientation, or you'll want to do, you know, a little bit more of a sort of, you know, this. You want to use this orbit tool to kind of get this kind of cool effect, and you find out that it screws up all your other animation. It screws up all your keyframes. So then you're going back in, and you come over here, and you just end up, you know, just tweaking every little keyframe. It just gets to be a mess. And before you know it, your whole camera movement's just kind of screwed up, and you're like, oh, I just need to start from scratch. It just gets to be a mess, and it's really hard to work with your camera this way. So I'm going to show you the way that I animate my camera, which is way easier. And the biggest problem with animating your camera using the camera tools like this is that if you look at the position under the, okay, so you go into your camera, you twirl down the little twirly thing, then you twirl down transition or transform. You see under position, you have the, what is this controlling here? This is the, okay, cool. So right here you have the X value of the position, which, you know, rotates the camera left or right. You have the Y right here, X, Y, and Z, you know, tilting the camera up and down. And then you have the Z, dollying the camera in and out. The problem is when there's one keyframe for all of these. So if I keyframe this, I have one keyframe for both the X, the Y, and the Z position controllers for the camera, if you will. And that's what can cause problems, because if I set a keyframe for, say, you know, I just, in this movement I want the camera just to dolly in, so I adjust my Z value, which again you can do by hitting the C key. This does the same thing. And then I want to go back and I'm like, well, I also want to adjust, you know, the Y position here. Well, the problem is it's using the same keyframe. And so that's why you can screw it up. So it'd be cool if you could keyframe the X, the Y, and the Z values separately. And that's what I normally do. There's a couple of ways to do this, but the easiest way is to go up to Layer, select a new null object. And what we want to add to this null is a little, I don't even know what it is. I guess it's not a filter. I don't know if it's in the presets. Let's see if we can find it. Well, it's called separate. There it is. Separate X, Y, and Z. It's in oh, it is. I guess it is a filter. It's in transform. So if you go, you could do it up here then too. Go to Effect. Oops, click on your null object. Effect. Transform. Where are you? Oh, it's not a filter. It's not a filter. Where's transform? Is that in? Help me out here. I'm supposed to be showing you something. Little do you know that I don't know anything. Where is it? Animation presets? Huh. Oh yeah. Okay. It's in animation presets. Well, there you go. Transform. Separate X, Y, and Z position. So I just want to drag and drop that onto the null object. And then what I want to do is link my camera to the null object. Basically, tell the camera that, okay, you're now controlled by the null object. Everything the null object does, I want you to do, camera. So I'm just going to pick whip, which is this little swirly thing, click and hold, and drag this little guy up to the null object. I think that's what I do. Or do I connect it to, let's see. I do this all the time, but I'm forgetting now. Let's see if it's working. It may not work right now because, oh, I guess it does. Okay, cool. So that is all you have to do. I was thinking you might have to pick whip the actual filter, but you don't. You just do the null object. Easy enough. So you can see now what we can do. Oh, and make sure your null is 3D because you can see the Z position here, the Z controller is doing nothing because the null is not a 3D layer. Now it is, and now the Z works. So let's reset this and let's reset the camera just so we can get back to where we started. Oh, that's a little funky. Well, let's reframe that. Let's reframe the shot using our new X, Y, and Z position controllers. So what we can now do, control the X position. So we want to move it over here. Control the Y, down there, and let's move that, make that a little bigger, and I'm going to pull out a little bit. So now this gives us the ability to do is keyframe the X, the Y, and the Z individually. So now I can control. Do you see, I mean, this isn't rocket science. You can see the advantage to this. You're not going to screw up your entire animation just because you add a little bit of a camera roll or rotation or something, because they're all individually keyframed. And then what you can do, or what you can do, is twirl down the transform, and I'll usually also keyframe the orientation a little bit, and this will just give me control over I don't know what you would call this, but basically if you had the camera in your hand, you could just kind of twist the camera around here or whatever. Now you could also, because the orientation also has an X, Y, and Z values, you could also separate this with another null. I believe, I've never actually tried this. Let's see if we can. If I just copy and paste this null, and let's see what I would do. I would maybe, I'm going to hit Option, click on the stopwatch, which will let me enter in a, what do you call it? Oh my word, my brain tonight. Expression, thank you. So I'm going to pick whip the new null, and I want to change the name of that. I'm going to make this null 2. If I pick whip that, I wonder if that will then, it doesn't look like it will. Oh, wait a minute, did that do that before? Oh, sorry, I'm learning as we go. Oh, so that's, duh. Somebody slap me up against the head, would you? Just, if you would, digitally slap me up against the head. Because as you can see right here, we have the X, Y, and Z rotation, which will do the same thing. That's all you're doing is rotating the camera. That's all orientation's doing. Good Lord. It's already separated for us. Look how easy that is. Okay, well, I'm going to stop making a fool of myself and probably end this tutorial. But that's just a much, much better way of controlling your camera. It's simple, it's quick, and once you do it, you will save yourself so much headache. Because if you've tried to animate your camera, especially with anything, I mean, the camera controllers are fine for something simple, but I mean, I usually do this with everything, even if it's a simple animation. I just like having the separate, control over the XYZ and being able to keyframe each one, because you can just get yourself into a mess. And once you do, it's hard to fix it. It's just a mess if you try to use these, the camera controllers as they are. So separate your X, Y, and Z controllers, position, values, and you'll save yourself a lot of hassle. There's a few other ways to do this, and actually, this computer I'm working on now is not connected to the internet, but if it was, I would take you over to a website called, I'm going to do this on my laptop, although you can't tell. It's videocopilot.com. I know I'm not speaking well tonight, but videocopilot.com. Awesome website. I'm sure you frequent it a lot if you're looking for good After Effects tutorials. But there is Andrew Kramer, who runs the site, has some fantastic free resources on there, and he has one that's called what's it called? Sure Target, and it is a free I guess a plugin is what it is, that you it's free. You download it. I'm looking at it right now while I'm trying to find it. It's in here somewhere. Sure Target. Here it is. Sure Target. It's a preset. Okay, I guess that's what it is. So it's a free preset that you just download into your After Effects presets folder, and it's really cool. And you just watch the tutorial. He'll show you what it does, but it's just perfect for a lot of cool camera movements that you'll probably do frequently, and it just makes them so much easier, makes them look a lot better, and it's much quicker. It's just, you should definitely have Sure Target. It's very cool. And he has some other tutorials on camera stuff, but anyway, this is just a simple way of moving your camera around. There's one other thing that I've done using null objects with cameras. I don't think I'm going to get into that this time. And basically what it does, I learned this from another tutorial. It's just, it gives you, it's a separate tutorial. It takes a little bit more time. It's simple. It's just basically the same thing, using a null object to control your camera. But anyway, that's enough for tonight. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. So hopefully that'll help you out next time you're doing pretty much anything in After Effects using a camera. Just try to stay away from using the camera controllers and use a null object instead. Works a lot better. All right, thanks for watching. Check out my website if you would like to see more tutorials in my little blog. It's at www.jasoncalhoun.info. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.